Hello and welcome to another episode of Spec Steppin. We are going to be stepping through the battery status API spec today. This is an API that you could use in a web app, probably most useful in a mobile environment, but it can work on a desktop environment and a quasi mobile desktop environment like my laptop, which I'm going to be demonstrating on today. So it will work in multiple environments. I just don't personally see how it's as useful if you have a desktop that's sitting on your desk. But with a laptop, particularly mobile devices, you could use this. Could also be utilized in applications where maybe you have something that takes a lot of energy, and you could check and see if they are plugged in or if the battery is charging at least. And if that battery is not charging, you could maybe disable certain features that might take up a lot of processing, therefore battery time, that sort of thing. You could also send notifications, just like you probably get on your laptop. Hey, you're getting close to being out of charging, so you might want to plug in, that sort of thing. So with this one, we have I'll go through the interface and everything, but they have an example here that's kind of close to the one I'm doing. And because there's this one's a pretty straightforward API. There's not a lot of variations on it, but you also should check and make sure it is compatible with certain browsers. This is one that is a rare one that it is not experimental. It's been released, but it's not implemented in all browsers, as you can see. If I go to, let me move my mug out of the way here, to can I use, and I'm going to put in battery. Here's the battery status API. Similar thing here that you see over here. Sometimes this chart, just as a side note, um, see the numbers here, how they're lower than here because we're like on 120 something in Chrome at the time of this recording. And I find that this is not always up to date. It is helpful. Don't get me wrong. It is a useful chart, but I like to go here. Maybe there's a chart you guys use that I'm not aware of that tells whether something is available or not. But as you can see, this is not something that is available in Safari and Firefox. So while this is not it is available on Edge and Chrome. So while this is not an experimental feature, it is a feature that you may want to question or check what browser is being used first. I'm not going to do that in my code today. I'm going to be using Chrome, but even some Chromium browsers, like right now I'm using Brave, which is built on top of Chromium. It doesn't function correctly in here in my testing, but it does in Chrome. So just a little tip there. So there's a bunch of methods and things that you can access in here, and I'll let you read it. But let's go ahead and dive in to my code. So the HTML is pretty straightforward. I don't have any real anything in the interface. I could build information where I could show the status, like on a progress bar type thing, and all that stuff. But I'm basically going to be using the console. So first, I go into the navigator and I check to see that um, the information's there as far as the battery. And so I get the battery and then I pass this battery parameter to it so I can access all the methods and things and properties inside that battery. So I have a console log. Actually, I'm going to remove that one. So I have this update charge info, and all it's doing is it's going to console log out battery charging, yes or no. So if the battery's charging, it's going to say yes. If the battery's not charging, it's going to say no. Okay. Here, when there's a change to the charge, let's say something becomes unplugged or we lose power or something, I can still use my laptop without having electricity until I run out of battery, that is. If there's a change to the charging status, it's going to run this again and change it to no or yes, depending on that change in charging status. And then I have the update level info. All it's going to do is it's going to grab the battery level. It is in decimal format, so I multiply it by 100 to give me a percentage of that level. And then I'm listening for the level change. And whenever the level changes, I'm going to update the level info. So if I'm at 80% charge and it changes to 81% charge, it's going to run that again and put it on the console. So update charging time info. That's one of the properties you can get. How long is it going to take to charge? And anytime that changes, same thing. I'm going to rerun it, and it's going to say, "Here's how long, how many seconds to charge." It's in seconds. You can of course do the math to give minutes, hours, whatever you need to. In a similar thing, there's discharging time info where there's a discharging time. How long until the battery's dead? Based on that platform. Now, one thing, if you test this on your own, one thing I did discover is if you're looking at this and wanting to test and you end up unplugging and plugging your cable back in, I was testing. I would display it, unplug my power cord from my laptop, display it again, and I wanted to see a change. And I was doing that first couple times. It were great. What I found is this API, if there are quick changes to the battery, such as you unplugging and replugging back in after a few seconds, these properties here will display infinity. And so it seems to me what it does is it needs to be plugged in and charging and discharging for a certain period of time. I didn't test what that time is, but I found that if I was unplugging and plugging back in and just refreshing my browser really quickly, then it wasn't it kept saying infinity, which I knew wasn't right. Once I had it plugged in or unplugged, for a while, it then displayed accurately. So there seems to be some sort of built-in buffer time there. And then here I have this update all battery info, which calls all four of them, and it calls that function there so that it runs as soon as it loads. And so this is an example of a design pattern where I could just call one function, one method, and it would update everything. So let's jump over here. Let me just refresh. Let me get my mug out of the way here. And so here you can see battery charging, yes, because I'm plugged in. I'm at 91% right now, and it's going to take 2,520 seconds to recharge. And here's an example what I was mentioning earlier about saying infinity seconds. The reason this is saying infinity seconds is I'm plugged in. So the battery is not discharging because it's charging. So that's where you could do some, hey, if it says returns infinity, then it must be plugged in, that sort of thing. So you did see here, right here, it went from 91% to 92% while I was talking with you because I'm plugged in. So that's an example of this method. Let me scooch back up here. Charging time change. The charging time changed, so it recalled that method, and now it's at 92%. So that's where you could definitely use it to like update a progress bar or something like that as far as the battery charge is concerned, or give feedback to the end user. So it's a pretty straightforward, simple API. There's not a lot of complexity to it, other than the fact that it doesn't work in all browsers. So just keep that in mind, like I mentioned earlier. If you have any questions, let me know. And if not, happy stepping.